The knowledge was there just recently, and now it's gone. So there's this thing that happens to almost every artist, and you've definitely felt it. You watch a tutorial, it makes total sense, like you're nodding along, like, yeah, I totally get it. And then a week later,
1 week later,
when you're trying to draw the same thing that you've learned in the tutorial, but like on your own, without the video playing alongside you, well, you just kind of forgot how to do it. No! The knowledge was there just recently, and now it's gone. And the frustrating part is that this doesn't happen just one time for one video. It just keeps happening again and again, systematically, right? Like you keep doing the practice, you put in the hours, but nothing sticks long term. So why is that? Well, it took me years to figure this out, but most people aren't really practicing. They just think they are. Like they're doing something that feels like learning, but builds almost nothing that lasts long term. And those artists that usually seem to be progressing much faster than everyone else, well, they're not more talented and they're usually not practicing more hours. They've just stumbled onto a way of practicing that actually sticks long term. So in this video, I'm going to break that down into a simple system that's easy to remember and apply. 4 steps. I call it the draw method. So let's see what that means, because it's going to change the game if your progress has been kind of slow, like most artists. So before we get to the system, you need to understand what the trap is, what gets most people, because it's the reason most practice gets wasted. There's this thing in cognitive science called the fluency illusion. And what it really means is when something feels easy and like clear in the moment, your brain takes that as a signal that you've learned it. But you haven't. You've only recognized it. And recognizing something and actually being able to do it yourself are 2 completely different things, even though they feel almost the same from the inside. Like when you follow along with a tutorial, it usually feels great, because everything makes sense as it's happening. But that smooth, like easy feeling is kind of lying to you. Like you're recognizing the artist's decision as they make them, but you're not building your own ability to make those decisions when the artist is not there, when the tutorial's not there. So that's why when it's time to do it on your own, it's like what you thought you knew just vanished from memory. Kind of like watching a tutorial on how to play soccer versus actually playing soccer. There's a huge difference there. So this whole draw system is really about closing that gap, taking the stuff that you only recognize and turning it into an actual skill that you own. So let's start with the first letter. So D is for diagnose, the step that almost everybody skips, and it's probably costing you the most. So here's what people do when they sit down to practice art. Like usually you'll draw something that you feel like, right? Makes sense. But it also happens to be the stuff that you're probably good at, like the same character, like original character that you always draw, the same 3/4 face angle that you're used to, that you've drawn 1,000 times. And when you do that, it feels productive. It feels like you're practicing, you're filling out those sketchbook pages, but you're really just maintaining the skills that you already have instead of building new ones. The fast improvers do the opposite. Like they'll figure out what they're actually bad at, like that specific thing, and then they aim straight at it. And I know this sounds obvious, but it's weirdly hard to do because your brain doesn't really want to look at its own weaknesses. It's much nicer to draw the thing that comes out looking good. So the solution here is pretty simple. Go take an honest look at your recent work, and ask yourself, what's the part that I keep avoiding? Like the thing that I rush through or kind of fake and hope nobody notices, or that thing that I always trace, don't trace, or something else you always use a reference for. Whatever it is, that's what you should train next. Like I personally do this with every new piece that I create. There's always a very specific skill in there that I'm trying to level up, something that I consider myself pretty weak at. And just like this works for me, it's also where your growth potential is typically hiding. All right, so now you know what to work on. R is for repetition, but with a very specific twist, because how you space it out over time will make or break this method. So back in the 1880s, there was this guy named Hermann Ebbinghaus who ran years of memory experiments on himself just to understand how we forget. And he found that forgetting follows this brutal curve, where roughly 70% of what you learn is gone within about a day if you don't revisit it. Like one day, that's it. And that's not your brain being broken, it's working exactly how it's supposed to, just dumping everything that you didn't repeat because it figures you didn't need it. And this is more likely why your fundamentals keep slipping, right? Like you learn something, you really get it in the moment, and then 6 weeks later, it's like, it's gone, and you're starting to guess again. It's not that you failed to learn it the first time, you learned it once and then you just never used it. It's the same sad reason that I'm losing my native French because I've been in the United States for over 15 years now. If you don't use it, you lose it. So the fix is what's called spaced repetition, which just means revisiting a skill with gaps in between instead of cramming it at once and then moving on forever. And the timing matters here because if you revisit it too soon, your brain didn't have to work to recall it, so nothing gets reinforced. But if you wait too long, then it's fully gone and then you're almost starting over. So what you want is to come back right when it's starting to fade, like when you have to strain a little bit to remember, because that little bit of struggle is what locks it in. So don't treat your fundamentals like a checkbox, that you tick once and then you're done. Like you have to rotate back through them. So if you're learning a little bit of anatomy this week, well, you have to revisit the same thing maybe in a couple of days, in a couple of weeks, and then a couple of months. The stuff you revisit is the stuff that you actually keep. So this brings us to A, which is active recall. And this one is the big one. So if you only take one thing from this video, it should be this. So there was this study that I found pretty interesting, published in Psychological Science, where two groups got the exact same reading material. One group just reread it after reading it the first time, and the other group tested themselves on it from memory instead. And a week later, the rereaders remembered about 34%, while the group that tested themselves remembered around 80% of it. So more than double, just from trying to recall the information instead of just reviewing it. And there's a researcher named Robert Bjork who spent decades on this and found what he calls desirable difficulties, which is basically that when learning feels hard, when you have to, strain a little bit to pull something out of your head, that struggle is the exact thing that builds the lasting memory. So easy practice and real improvement kind of move in opposite directions, which means the practice that feels the best is often doing the least for you. So how do you use that in art? Well, you stop copying the reference sitting right next to you the whole time, because that's just basically the art version of rereading, right? So instead, study the thing, really look at it, and then take it away and draw it from memory. Study a hand for a bit, hide it, draw it cold. You'll get it wrong for sure, but that's the point. The getting it wrong and going back to check it is exactly where the learning happens. Copying a line for line teaches you almost nothing, but drawing from memory, which feels much harder, teaches you a ton. Again, the information that you gain by always relying on the reference and copying your reference, that's gone within a couple of weeks. If you actually want to improve, you have to challenge yourself, hide it, and try to draw it from memory constantly. So like I said, I'm sure a lot of you right now are thinking, but now you know, so fix it. And this is honestly the stuff that I built my whole art program around. My Art School for Digital Artists program isn't just a big pile of tutorials that, students just nod along to. It's actually structured around the way that you naturally learn, like the right skills in the right order, each one building on the last, so things actually stick over time. It's over 30 in-depth classes covering pretty much everything you need to draw or paint whatever you can imagine. Plus, you get lifetime access, all future updates for free, and a private Discord full of artists working through the same stuff alongside you. And there's still a couple of days left to our big summer sale. It's good until the end of the month only though, so check the link down in the video description to learn all about it. I don't want you to miss out on this if you've been looking to take your art to the next level. Now, let's check out the last letter. So W is for wreck it. And what I mean by that is you've got to deliberately attempt stuff above your level and let yourself fail at it, like on purpose, pretty regularly. Because here's the thing, a finished piece is basically the ultimate version of that active recall idea that we just talked about. Because when you commit to actually finishing a real drawing that's a little too hard for you, you're suddenly forced to pull everything together at once. The construction, the anatomy, the perspective, the colors, whatever, all at the same time in one place. And that's the moment that you find out what you actually know versus what you only thought you knew. And most people never do this. They stay in a safe zone drawing little studies or drawing simple characters and basic poses that aren't very challenging to them because you can't fail when things feel easy and it's low stakes. But a finished piece can absolutely fail. I fail them all the time, and that's exactly what makes it valuable. Because every time you reach above your level and something breaks, that broken part is showing you your next thing to diagnose. And that's how the whole system starts feeding itself, right? You wreck something a little too hard for you, it shows you what you're weak at, so you go and diagnose that and then drill it into your memory with spaced repetition and recall. And then you go ahead and go wreck the next thing. That's the loop. And once you're in that loop, well, you just keep climbing. You kind of improve like crazy by just failing forward like this nonstop continuously. So keep that in mind. Comfort, whenever you feel like what you're drawing is completely under your control, that's when the alarm should start going where you're like, I'm really not learning anything right now. And on the other hand, if you're bashing your head against a wall right now because what you're working on is really hard, well, this is the way. That's how you learn. That's how you improve fast. So that's the whole system. You diagnose what you're already bad at, you repeat it spaced out over time, recall it instead of just copying it, and then you wreck things slightly above your level so you keep failing forward like this. Draw. And if you actually do this, even just a little bit of it, you'll start naturally pulling ahead of basically everyone who's just watching tutorials and nodding along, feeling like they're learning while none of it really sticks long term. And look, this whole thing kind of falls apart if you're quietly kind of ruining yourself with the wrong kind of practice, which probably most people are without realizing it. So if you want to make sure that you're not one of them, watch this video next here. It'll appear right on the screen. It's all about the practice habits that secretly make you worse at art. So go ahead, click the link. I'll see you over there. Do it, bro.